Hi, Kyle, the Anchor Archaeologist. So behind me is Lake Huron. This is the first time that I'm ever seeing these. I'm from Toronto, and as a result, I wanted to try and learn a little bit about. I'm here on an away job in my CRM away job in archaeology, and I wanted to do a little bit of reading up on this lake, and I found an Indigenous author who definitely recommend, and I need to read more of his work, but George Sioui. And in one of his works, he mentioned that this lake in the Wendat language is referred to as karegnondi. And, you know, that is just a partial remnant of the full descriptive term that was used by the Wendat here, which are referred to, although it is potentially a derogatory term in origin, but Huron. This area is referred to as the Huron Tract, and so Wendat and using the Indigenous name is important. This also being the traditional land of the Chippewa, Anishinaabe peoples. With regards to Bill 5 and Bill C5, to give an example of the cultural history at risk here, so one thing that archaeologists do is that we think about what the geology was like thousands of years ago. And 9,000 years ago, there was something called the Amber-Albany land bridge, which ran across the Lake Huron, and caribou traveled across there migrating, and so paleo hunters would hunt them, and they had a way of hunting where they would use constructions to corral them. These are called hunting blinds, and the hunting blinds have been found by archaeologists, by underwater archaeologists, beneath the lake behind me here, Lake Huron, karegnondi. It's important to use Indigenous languages when appropriate as a way to signal that this is the home of the First Nations peoples. And with regards to Bill 5 and Bill C5, a new form of colonial violence being used against Indigenous people, and also the environment, really is against any human being. Say there's a special economic zone. Say Ford or Kearney says that a special economic zone is required behind me, so they can just put in a pipeline and destroy those paleolithic stone blinds from hunting 9,000 years ago. Not only that hunting, but with the archaeology that has been done, underwater archaeology that's been done beneath this lake, they've also been able to determine that obsidian was traded via Oregon all the way here during the Paleolithic period. And if a cultural history is an argument that doesn't resonate with you, I'm sad to hear that. But in an environmental perspective, these Great Lakes are just becoming more and more important as the climate is changing for the worse, becoming more and more inhospitable to life. And if we just keep, pumping out the oil, putting in more oil pipelines, which like Line 5, for instance, in Lake Ontario, which threatens the entire sustainability and the habitability of the entire peninsula. By the way, the term Wendat means peninsula dweller, peninsula resident, or island resident, giving a reference to the ingenuity within the meaning of the term itself. So and these are things that are very important. They should be very important to everyone. When our government is destroying our environment, committing colonial violence against the people whose home this is. And I just think it's important to say this. And it's, if you do visit different places you haven't been, definitely look up the local Indigenous terms, local Indigenous peoples. For instance, this is the traditional land of the Chippewa and Anishinaabe people, and understand how, or if they've written on this subject, whether it be a lake or some sort of other topographic feature, see what the meaning of that word is, and see the people whose home it is. And maybe if we as people of settler descent, European descent, living here now in Canada, like many of our political leaders, would remind ourselves that this is their home, this is the home of the First Nations peoples, we wouldn't even be considering destroying their cultural history. And There are a lot of reactionary people out there who will probably say a bunch of reactionary things, so that's kind of what they do. If this was, Stonehenge in England or something like that, they wanted to put a highway through there, they wouldn't stand for it. And people, wouldn't, there would be no expectation. So that's not a colonial environment, and colonial violence is something very different. It's something very destructive, and it's also just very divisive. And it's these bills, Bill 5, Bill C5 now on the federal, it's a shame that in 2025 we're still dividing ourselves as to, whose cultural history deserves to be preserved. And I think everyone's cultural history deserves to be preserved, especially the First Nations Indigenous history here, because their history, a lot of it has not been written yet, and we need archaeology and we need archaeological projects, and we cannot be declaring, special economic zones and just allowing, beach as a security guard. Evidently, I guess I should be packing up. Anyway, thank you for listening to me, Kyle. Thank you, archaeologist. Bye.